Hey, these.
Well, I'm gonna get them. I'm gonna get them. Okay, welcome, folks. This is House Corrections. It's Thursday. Second. Starting out our morning with buildings and general services. We're working on our capital budget. We're really gonna be focusing on their section. We'll get down as far as 10. I do have Scott from fiscal made up some new spreadsheets.
Awesome.
Basically what it is, fiscally oriented folks.
Thank you, sir.
Fiscally orient, once everybody gets it. Kate needs one. Yeah, you got to put on your reading. So the blue columns is what we passed last session, the end of the session. The gray column in the middle is what the governor has recommended. So everything in the highlights, yellow highlights is where the governor has recommended the move, moving money around. The red is the same as the gray columns without the highlights, but it's an ability for us to write whatever we need to write in that column for that when we start moving money around and do markup. So the gray column and the red column are the same. They just don't show the highlights in the red column. Okay. So that's what's at stake here. So Commissioner Manoli, why don't you come on up? And we're going to start with section 2. And we will, because this is a budget adjustment, we're going to we'll focus in where the money is being asked to be moved and changed, but that's not to say that we don't get some background information on the projects that are not being affected by BAA. Because sometimes what we find, if we ask questions about a project that hasn't been subjected to the governor's recommended BAA, sometimes we find that, well, maybe the project needs a little bit more money. The governor didn't put that in, or maybe it's not going as quickly as we'd hoped. So maybe they don't need the money in 27 that we put in. And those little moving pieces that we can play with for that. So Commissioner, welcome.
So good morning, Wanda Manoli, Commissioner of Buildings and General Services, and I appreciate how you just described your committee's puzzle pieces.
It's a puzzle.
It is a puzzle. I'm going to turn it over to my team really shortly, but I just wanted to do a quick overview. And first, I think you know everyone in the room, but I just want to acknowledge, Joe Aja again. It's a wonderful journey. I'm having fun. You're going to hear from Lauren Washburn, and I think you've probably heard from her before, but we've asked Lauren to come in and start participating because major maintenance is a huge piece of our budget, and it supports one of the biggest services that we have to provide statewide. And Lauren's a chief that works under Joe, but she manages the program and she works with all of the district facility managers, and they have a process that's in place. And she's very passionate about it. I think we all are when it comes to major maintenance. You are going to see that our spend has increased because we've realigned, we're focused, we're really making those investments in the building. And so you're going to hear that's part of why there's an increase in that. And my numbers may be wrong, so I apologize, but I will put estimates out there. I think that for several years in the past, Lauren's had a pretty good carry forward. She's almost out of money. And that doesn't mean, and it means that it's assigned and it's moving forward with a project. And I hope we don't have to get into the maintenance of all of these buildings, but she's going to really, I want her to spend some time with you so you understand that. You all know Emily, you all know Cole, and we are here to support you through your legislative session. The other, we've you know, BGS does not put the capital bill together. We don't do the budget adjustment. We used to do that, Madam Chair.
Oh, yes.
And so we are sections within that capital bill. So we've realigned also a little bit on our presentation, and we, you know, we want to test it with you and make sure that it works. So Joe's going to take you through section 2. And then we have other sections because we oversee construction and maintenance. So we didn't take all of the sections and put them in our PowerPoint. We just focused on section 2. There are 2 items in there that is David Sheets money for what we call the State House. Joe's going to skip over that, and also security, because I'd like to come back and have a conversation about those specific appropriations and what the mission is and what we're trying to accomplish.
State House Security?
No, that's something else. So you give us money every year to do improvements in the State
Okay.
House. It's almost like a separate maintenance budget to do curtains and carpets and that type of thing. But, you know, I just want to talk about that, I think, with the committee. The other piece that I just wanted to talk about is I do have a meeting scheduled with Scott. We really, you know, lessons are always learned, realignment. And last year, going through your repo, because I'm going to call it your repo process, Joe and I had to get Abacus to align, but, you know, our documents weren't tying out with Vision. We had a higher spend than the report you were getting from Vision. So we spent the past, you know, year after the session working on realigning our numbers and putting information into Vision so the numbers were closer. So if we had a purchase order or a requisition or a contract, that wouldn't show up in Vision until we actually started spending on it. So we worked with finance to be able to track the projects on our list and where they're at into Visions. And so you're going to see, because last year the report you got didn't line up with ours. And that's why I said we needed an abacus. And Joe and I sat in the office and let me tell you, it didn't matter how many pencils we used. We couldn't come up with the same we couldn't sharpen them enough. So we really spent time and invested in that process. So I look forward to my meeting with Scott. We will make our spreadsheet available to him. I think we've probably sent you one. And we'll work through that so he can support you better in those numbers, because we were turning over every leaf and having to explain everything. And that's still important to do, but a lot of that money had been committed and it wasn't showing up. So I just wanted to share that with you.
So for the repo, I don't know if you include our legislative council in your whole work beyond JFO, but keep John in the loop as well.
And Scott helped us last year. So I mean, I'm not sure if he's analyzed the spreadsheet that we gave him yet, but I mean, it's a really good working relationship, and I just want to acknowledge him and thank him for that. The other point I'd like to make, and then I'd just like to turn it over, Madam Chair, to Joe and Lauren, is that I know there are many reallocations that have been proposed to you on some projects. There's cash and there is bonded money. And I would like you to just think about if you want us to talk about that section separately and talk about the status of why we may have proposed those dollars to be reallocated, because Joe hasn't brought it into the section 2. And so it was an analysis of where we are with the project, what's moving forward, why we didn't spend it. I mean, it wasn't detailed written, but those are the conversations that we had.
Yeah, for the committee, this is really the first time that we have come up against the timeframe for the cash fund
Yes.
or the second look for reallocations.
Yeah.
Last year, we did it ourselves when we reallocated. It was over $1 million for the vets home. There was it for A, or we had B and C wings in there and it wasn't going forward, and we reallocated that. We moved it to another project at the vets home. We did that.
Right.
But this is the first time that there is cash that was put aside for these projects that the cash has not gone out the door. And it's up against that timeline of,
Not the mandatory timeline yet. We're a year out from that.
some of these, it's coming up for June 16th. From what Nick said, some of these are hitting that timeline. And because they'll expire
That's right.
in June of this year.
Yeah. Are we at the 3-year mark?
Yeah.
Yes, we are from 24.
And so that would be allocated in FY 23. That's the 2-year mark.
No, 23.
Yeah.
And
So this will be a new conversation for us because the goal is that the cash goes out the door first instead of bonded. So we'll get into that separately.
And there are a few items, and I believe Nick went over it that, so we really did take a deep look at if it's an active project, and the money needed to be reallocated under that statutory authority, then we reallocated it to the project. If the project didn't move forward, or if it was canceled for any reason, or it's
the bottom line.
it goes to the bottom line. And I think the statement you just made is really, really important. And it's one of the elements that Joe and I, talked about with, our new working relationship is the way the cash was being tracked in our spreadsheet, it wasn't connected to the project. And so when project managers are paying bills, we had not a lot, but they would their codes that they use, they weren't necessarily spending the cash first. So that's been a huge change in process that Joe has implemented. And the way we revised our spreadsheet, you can now click on a project and Scott will be your expert and you can see all of the appropriations and they know to go to cash first. So and I just wanted to share that with you. And at this time, I'm going to stop talking and I'm going to turn it over to Director Aja, if I may, unless you have any further questions for me.
No, thanks for making that effort to do that.
You're welcome. So I just want, do committee members have any questions? Because this is a little new. This is different than last year.
I don't have a
James?
question, but I have a comment and I'll make it brief because we have things to do. I've been here for 8 years and I want to thank you and your crew for being, I think, the best partners as far as our working together that I have dealt with over those 8 years. So
Thank you.
don't let it go to your head.
It's important for my team to hear that. And it is a partnership. We're not always going to agree or we're going to have different visions, but what I really value and appreciate is the opportunity that you allow us to have the conversations around it. So thank you.
Okay. Joe and Lauren, do you both want to come up?
Lauren will come up first and laid everything out the slide deck as it goes right through the spreadsheet. So major meetings first.
So Lauren, welcome.
Don't give her too hard of a time.
B?
Good morning, Lauren Washburn, BGS.
Welcome. Welcome.
So, there's, yeah.
Yes.
Need a paper copy of that?
I don't think so. I'll tell you when I put the slide. So I oversee the major maintenance program. Major maintenance covers the large repairs and the major system replacements in BGS owned buildings. BGS has over 240 buildings and 4 million square feet statewide. 25% of our buildings are 24/7 facilities of correctional facilities, mental health care facilities, labs, state police barracks. So with that comes usually higher use and more maintenance intensive.
Of those 27, which one? You said there's correctional facilities, there is police barracks and mental health, which would be our state hospital in Berlin, as well as our step-down residential facility up in Essex. And Middlesex, those 4 beds in the trailer. Of those, which one were to get the most abuse? Maybe abuse isn't the right word, but which one really, the buildings really suffer the most?
They are correctional facilities.
What do you see in our correctional facilities? For damage or maintenance, big maintenance items?
Yeah, everything is steel. So in this environment, a lot of our exterior steel rusts. We need to replace doors often. Things like that. Our mechanical systems. Our youngest correctional facility is over 20 years old. Yeah, so
Is it the age of the facility or is it just the constant use of the
I think
facility?
it's a combination. They're older, but they are used heavily all the time. There is no downtime.
And what about our mental health facilities, like this hospital one, the step down and the trailers, of course, in Middlesex are gonna take.
I don't see as many major maintenance projects come in there, but I think they're both newer. 10 years or so and younger.
And while they're, Madam Chair, while they're 24/7 facilities, use in the correctional facilities, and this is probably not the best way to say, is hard. I mean, those systems run all the time, water, kitchen, the floors, the security. It's constant and it's at a higher level than the other facilities that Lauren is talking about. So, you know, and major maintenance is everything. You all know this, it's roofs, it's windows, it's systems, it's heating systems, it's, you know, floors, halls, walls and stalls.
Yes. Our major maintenance projects typically focus on what we call priority one items. So priority one would be something that is a life safety or a code compliance issue, equipment that's at end of life, or a system failure is imminent, or if that system were allowed to fail, it would be really disruptive to the operation of the facility. We have approximately 2.7 million left in the funds appropriated to us to get us through to July 1st. So for the next 6 months, that's about the major maintenance funding that we have left.
Sean, did you have any?
Where is you said that, where's that figure?
0.7.
Yeah,
It's the 12, which includes the FY27 money. If you
Oh, I
take
see.
that, if you take that away.
got it, thank you.
Joe, so if you could identify yourself.
For the record, Joe Adrian, Director of Design and Construction with Building and General Services. I know last year we had roughly another 2 point something million in our major maintenance and said, you know, that's what we were at. We also had projects in the queue and had encumbered the money, and that was really the money that was left over. The money that Lauren's talking about right now is, and she'll get into a little bit more how she breaks up the money and assigns it. But that's all we have till July 1st. There is, you know, very few projects in the queue. Plus, we don't have any old money to rely on. And again, she's gonna get to this in the next couple of slides.
So I'm just trying to figure out the answer to Sean's question. Where's the 2 million, 2.7?
Yes.
In the balance, we have the new 27, both bonded and cash funds coming through in the balance.
If you
So that-
subtract the 8.5 and the 1.2 from the 12 million,
Okay.
you will get the balance.
Yes.
That's
Okay.
There's a delay.
okay. So how we manage our major maintenance funds, so work orders that come in that are too large or complex for our operations and maintenance staff to complete themselves, they go on what we call the deferred maintenance list. So the deferred maintenance list constantly has items being added to it as they arise. And then twice a year, we select major maintenance projects to fund from that deferred maintenance list. And we use approximately half the appropriation that we get on the first half selecting projects and then the second half of selecting projects. The operations and maintenance districts will prioritize their most critical projects in their district. And then we take all of that together, look at it statewide, and we prioritize our projects based on the individual district's priority, the estimated cost of the project, and the available major maintenance funds that we have. And then those selected projects, we call those planned projects, and they get assigned to a project manager. We average about 60 projects every time we do this project selection cycle that gets assigned out to project managers. And then projects that are not funded will stay on that deferred maintenance list and they get considered the next time we go through a selection cycle. We do hold some major maintenance funds aside for unplanned and emergency projects. So unplanned would be something that was probably on the deferred maintenance list, but we thought we had more time before it was going to need to be replaced and it's failed early. Yes.
No,
Hang on.
finish.
No, we got some questions. Keep going.
Okay.
Okay,
Want me to keep going?
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah.
So an example of an unplanned, we recently had a snow melt controller for sidewalks at Middlebury Court that failed. So not an emergency, but it should be replaced over that, not go that entire winter. And then the other piece of that would be emergency projects. And so two recent emergencies was a roof leak at Asa Bloomer. And then we also had a cooler go down at Northern State in their kitchen. So it needed some.
So I kind of interrupt at a good stopping point when I see that folks have raised their hands to speak. So I'll stop here, but your boss has got her hand up.
I think what I'd like to also share, which wasn't highlighted, with the committee is there are projects that are on the deferred maintenance list that internally we make through process and conversations, we make the decision to put that into the capital bill as a line item. Because of maybe the cost, and it's usually just, cost. I just want to share with you that while we plan and we await approval, some of those projects, and you're going to hear about it, and this is why I'm bringing it up, become an emergency. So we don't plan on spending any money, and then the Asa Bloomer roof starts leaking in multiple places. So while that's a capital bill item that Joe's going to talk about, because that's just another example, we've had to use our major maintenance in significant amounts to fix the leaks.
You got a backfill.
And well, I think I'm gonna use an estimate again, 400,000 or more. Well, that's for one, that for Asa Bloomer. The new one's 200. We spent 3, yes. But, we've probably spent about 400,000 roughly on repairs out of this fund for a roof replacement we really need to do. So that's the correlation between major deferred maintenance and also some of our capital bill items. Sorry.
And then Troy.
Lauren or whoever can answer this, but historically is having 2.7 million in January low, or is it kind of what you usually have in the bank right now, just for context for new people?
I have some more information on that on the next slide, but this is low.
Okay,
Yes.
thanks. Yeah, that's good to know.
And I just want to point out to the committee, this committee used to fund major maintenance out about 12 million. I think, Madam Chair, you're gonna remember in your history bank. And I think as COVID and other things occurred and flooding, this was a section that was easy to reduce, right? Because the use wasn't as high. So we are seeing that trend, because we shifted, we're seeing the trend go back up. That's all I want to say.
Troy?
First, I think it's just an assumption that I might want to check if it's not accurate. So a work order comes in, it's going to get assigned to deferred maintenance. Is that a dynamic, like you make a judgment as far as priority? Like it's not necessarily a chronological list. It's you move it where you
Yes.
think it belongs on the list.
Yes, so work orders come in all the time, and then the program chief from operations and maintenance and I sit down and we go through them every other week. We're looking at the new ones that have come in, and we say, sometimes things come in that belong as a line item.
Sure.
So we're identifying the ones that belong as major maintenance, and we're building that list so that when we're meeting with the district managers to go over what's most critical. When the work order gets put in, it asks for a priority.
Okay. And then
So
you
usually
all
they're
assign-
picking something then, and then if we have additional information that's come in, it may have come in as a priority too, which is kind of like keep it on your radar. We're having some problems with it, but it's not critical yet. That may change, if we start having roof leaks, we might change it from a 2 to a 1.
And then what's the longest that something remains on the deferred list? What's the longest item on there now? How long has it been there?
well, we switched systems, so they all have like a drop dead date of a few years ago, but probably 3 or 4 years. I mean, it depends on when someone put it on there and what
Well,
other
3 or
things
4.
have come up,
Under 5 is,
hopefully, but I couldn't say
okay.
100%.
So when do you get to a point, and I'm thinking basically of our correctional facilities, I would assume there's a lot of maintenance, ongoing maintenance at all of our facilities, but also a lot of deferred maintenance. What are you seeing for our correctional facilities in terms of the maintenance and deferred maintenance? Are some of them coming up to the top that there's a lot of maintenance required? And then when that does happen, when do we come to a point that we look at, is it worth investing in this particular building? Or is it worth doing something different? So they're kind of intertwined.
There's always a lot of items for correctional facilities on the list. We try and group things together if we can. If we're going to be disruptive, we try and do those things at around the same time. Because the facilities can only have so many projects going on at once. Probably a recent example would be when we did the door control projects. We did some major maintenance items at the same time because we had to close buildings in order to do that.
But are there some facilities that are really coming up to the top that they're needing a lot more maintenance because of age and use? Some correctional facilities, Joe?
Yes and no. The age is one thing when you're looking at things, and that's where it may go on the list because we've done a facility condition assessments, like, the air handler is 20 years old. It's a motor, fan, a couple other things in there to make it keep working. That actually you can do minor repairs and kick it down the road, as opposed to the roof leak when a work order comes in and it may be just the roof leak. Or we come to find out the roof maintenance has been maintaining this roof leak for years, and all of a sudden now it's to the point of failure. And then that's where, certainly in correctional facilities, probably those become more emergent than you would in an office building, because in a correctional facility, you can't send people home. Where in the office, you could take time, you could move people out. So that's all part of it. But systems fail differently for different reasons. There are some air handling units, chillers, and like that prematurely fail. Some of our boilers and air handlers have been for years, up until the HVAC project in the State House, most of them were from the 70s. And they just keep going. And then a lot of it is dependent on maintenance. Proper maintenance will extend that.
Proper maintenance will extend that.
I was just trying to get to a point, particularly with our correctional facilities, does it get to a point that the maintenance that is required in the building is so high and the cost so high that it's really time to say, do we continue with this building? Because we've had those conversations about the Chittenden facility for years. Because that facility itself in the past had about $15 million worth of deferred maintenance, if not more. So I just want to put that on the table, that it's a balancing act. Do you keep expending major maintenance dollars in a building that at some point in time really should be replaced? You know what I'm getting at?
I know where you're getting at, and I think that I'm processing how we could sort of like measure that with what you're saying, and let us go back and think about it.
Curious. I mean,
Because
our buildings are aging out.
But I think, Joe's comment about if we invest in maintenance, you can make those facilities last a long. Just because they're old doesn't mean they're falling down. It's what we invest in them and how we take care of them. And I want to say to the committee, I think Lauren made a really good point that I just want to repeat, and that it is very difficult to work in correctional facilities. We have a great relationship with corrections, but there's process. There's process on who can work in there. There's process of your tools. There's process how you have to enter them. Lauren talked about the example where they shut down the wing and they did the door locks. She took the opportunity to realign money while they were in there to make those other improvements. So we don't just, walk in and walk around our correctional facilities with, screwdrivers and hammers Like, we have a relationship with them. They will call us. We, we do numerous calls 24/7. We always have someone ready to support the correctional facilities. But, I mean, they are the correctional facilities and it's not like going into an office and renovate. And I think that's a really important point. So we try to maximize where we can.
With all those security enhancements that you have to do, that increases the cost of the project, whatever it might be, because there's time involved in the staff coming and going out of that building, where normally they just walk in and start work, but you can have a half hour to an hour delay before they actually do any of the work. So that increases the cost of that particular project.
And there's times and windows, I believe, Lauren, when you have, how you have to schedule and project manage
Yes.
those. It's not like we might do it in the evening building, in the standard building. You don't have that flexibility.
Correct.
Next slide. So on this slide, the left chart shows our deferred maintenance list, the value of our deferred maintenance list in purple. Major maintenance appropriations are shown in green, and then the actual major maintenance money that's spent or encumbered is shown in blue. So you can see that every year we have exceeded our appropriation in the amount of major maintenance money spent, and that is because we've been able to use the prior year major maintenance funds that we've had to make up the difference. For fiscal year 26, the spent and encumbered amounts is through 12/31. Since that time, since I put this table together, I've assigned about a 300,000 in additional major maintenance funds per request that have come in. We have slowed our spending down because of the amount of money that we have left. So we've put some projects back on the deferred maintenance list, and then we are only working on unplanned projects that really shouldn't wait and emergencies at this point. Some deferred projects that are on this list include flooring, siding, window replacements. We have plaster repairs, roof replacements, a couple of facilities needing brick repointing, parking lots to be repaved. The deferred list currently has over 180 items on it. That's a point in time, so there's new things that are coming in all the time. And then the right chart shows a breakdown to explain how we've been able to spend more than our appropriation. We're spending the oldest money first. We were using mostly old funds for fiscal year 22. And then you can see that that proportion has been shifting each year as there's less and less old money for us to use. We've been using more of the current appropriation. And for FY 26, the majority of our spending has come from the money that we got in July. So about 90% has come from funds we got in July. And we were on track to spend about 12 million for fiscal year 26, but given the amount of money that we have left, we've made adjustments.
So in FY 22 and FY 23, there wasn't much work happening during COVID. So a lot of that money, the 6.7 and the 5.4 being available in FY 22 and FY 23 is really money that had been previously appropriated, but you couldn't get out the door because projects weren't going forward because of COVID.
Correct.
So that's why you had such old money there. So I just want to put that in perspective for folks. The question going forward, do we want to cut them? Do we want to have our numbers, the amount that they have to work with so close to what is really needed during that fiscal year so that they don't have a buffer? That's really the question before us. Do we want to cut it so close for them that they just don't have any flexibility?
And Madam Chair, this aligns with the budget adjustment number. We are trying to get some of that room. And it's money we will spend. It is projects that will move on. It is not money that sits.
Right. And in the past, I've also had minimal staff. Around COVID. We were down 5, 6 project managers. We're almost at full staff right now, so
And you had a lot of retirements.
Bid.
there's that too. I mean, when Sometimes there were no bids, sometimes we had one bid.
The other thing too, that I think is part of the conversation is when there is a low unemployment rate and contractors are really busy. And we go out to bid, they may not bid, or the bids may come in because they don't need the work, so the bids come in a lot higher. When contractors need work, there's going to be more bidding on our projects and the prices will be more competitive. So that plays in as well. Troy?
Yeah, I want to bring the repo deadlines into this as well. My question or my wondering is major maintenance different enough to where the statute might want to recognize that? Because right now, when we look at the spreadsheets, we look at what's 2 years old, what's 5 years old, what do we need justification on? But you're always going to spend it. So I'm just wondering, is major maintenance different, right? This isn't a project that has fallen behind or is no longer going to happen like some of the other categories that we're looking at in repo. And does my question make sense? Yeah. Do you have a thought on that? I don't know.
I've never given it that thought, but as you stated, it's a revolving door. Projects go on the
Right.
list, they get completed. And anything that maintenance started 2 years ago is completely gone. And that funding that's sitting there, it's not, in the past, it's been, we can't get it out the door. But now I think you're gonna be seeing the next several years, maybe 5, where we're spending it right down to the penny.
Right.
It will be, as we are today, in January, looking at just emergency and unpaid money.
Because last year, if the committee will remember, we clawed back money because statute requires us to do that, and we just reassigned it to the same place.
Right, we expect.
Right. So, I mean, that was a kind of a workaround to the policy as it's stated, but if we're going to be doing that more and more and more, that to me says maybe the statute isn't appropriately applied for at least this section of the capital bill. That's what I'm thinking.
Mhm. And I think too, I just want to put this on the table for folks to balance out. BGS does have the authority to move money between projects in their section. So, there is a planning and reuse line, there's the contingency line, there's other projects. I'm not saying that we want them to depend on that. But I just want to also put that piece of information out there that up to a certain limit, they do have the ability to move money around fiscal year between projects. So Emily, you want to weigh in? Could you just identify yourself for the record?
Emily Casey, Deputy Commissioner of BGS for the record. And I want to echo Director Age's points and your thought that major maintenance money is always needed. There is always going to be work to do. So to the extent we can keep older money that's available to us, which we're not having lately, would be helpful. And then, yes, that contingency line, which there will be a slide on it in this presentation, that is available to us if needed. And I think right now, there's times where we're talking about that money as an option where we have these emergency sort of scenarios arising and we need a source of funding for it. So that is an option, but then of course that reduces our ability to use it for, planning and other purposes. But yeah, that sort of contingency option is something that we discuss and can utilize if needed. And I think that's where we're at right now, given our funding.
Not that we want to depend on them having that ability to move money around, but I want to put that on the table so that it's a balanced discussion for the committee members for that. And maybe repo, you do take at the statute for the reallocations. Come in with a recommendation. Yeah.
I mean, it's there to protect not having bonded dollars sit there for years and years and years. That's why those clawback deadlines are there, but yeah. We can talk.
There's clawback deadlines for the bonded dollars.
That's 2 and 5, cash is 2 and 3.
Right, but there's also cash too.
That's a 3-year,
We're
that's-
Getting into
Right.
that. So anyway, just to balance the thinking out when we do mark. And I don't want to short sight major maintenance. I know we always go to major maintenance line. If we have something left on the bottom line, we'll say, we'll add it to major maintenance, or if we need the bottom line to total out, we'll pull it from major maintenance. It's been habit for a long time. It's been,
Like the giving part better.
huh?
Like the giving part better.
Give us more.
Well, by definition, I think major maintenance is things you have to do to maintain the facility, as opposed to things we would like to do because we think it's the right thing to do. So the major maintenance, as long as we don't have more money in there than the deferred maintenance list, I think it's pretty obvious that everybody knows we need to do that. We don't have a choice to maintain the facility if we don't do that eventually. So yeah, I think your IT's right on, Troy.
To your point, sir, the list doesn't change. The delay cost us more.
Right.
Okay, anything else on this one before we move on? Then I take it Joe's coming.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Lauren.
Thank you so much.
That wasn't too bad for you.
You did great.
You'll get used to it. Okay. So what the governor has proposed for major maintenance is we put in last year 8.5 in bonded for FY 27. Governor has accepted that 8.5 in bonded money for FY 27 and added 1.281 million in cash. We did not have any cash in FY 27 for major maintenance. So the governor is up that for FY 27 by 1.281 million. Okay? So that's a shift. That's a budget adjustment.
Isn't any cash for FY 27 by definition is added this in the adjustment, correct?
The bonded money has changed too.
But last year, but just germane to the cash, we didn't allocate any 27 cash in the first year of the 2-year budget. That's added.
We put in 1.5 million cash in FY 26.
Correct, but there was no,
There was no cash in FY 27.
you don't know what it is last year. Okay.
For this particular one. Joe?
All set?
Okay.
Thank you. Moving on, next line item up is planning, reuse and contingency. And we touched on it a little bit today, past presentations also. So we use for planning, we had projects that are not on the books yet, but it's something that perhaps we should look into. So we do a study. I think I mentioned to you last time I was here about looking at the public safety facility, the old facility in Williston. And that could it be used for something else? Because the language of this capital bill was to see whether or not the town of Williston was interested in it, and they had said no. So it's right now being utilized by public safety. And I also mentioned to you that there's a potential of a light going in to help out and create a new intersection there. So is that something that we could use? So that's what our planning money is for, to do an evaluation on that, you know, do a quick little study, say, how can we repurpose this property? And do we need it? And then we get into contingency. Sorry, reuse. So reuse is something where something comes up and it's not a planned move by us or renovation by us. Something happens, that it could be the fact that, you know, it could be a roof leak and we temporarily relocate people someplace. Or we need them because we're moving offices around, whether in a complex or something else, wasn't planned. And so we use the reuse money to effectively make that move. It's also some construction sometimes that goes into that. And so that's what reuse is for. And then we have contingency, and contingency is capped at $100,000. After $100,000, we then have to go to the secretary and then to the e-board after 200,000. So the commissioner does have up to $100,000 that she can use out of this fund for the projects. Right now, we have committed roughly $420,000. And in here, we're looking at 120 and 111 State Street. That's going to come up a little bit later in the fact that we have a large project coming down the road here due to flood. If we were to start the renovation of 120 State Street, and that was a full, not a complete gut, but a full renovation from the basement all the way up the roof with all new HVAC and electrical. And that would require people moving out temporarily, going to a swing space. So when we were looking at this and going, well, that could impact how we work with what we need to do with the flood. And so what we're doing is holding on that until we get to the flood. So that they can better work together so that we don't end up with, we should have waited on that because the flood's dealing with it. Or something along those lines. You, sir.
So, Joe, can I just, may I just, I think this is really important, John, to talk about this. So when you see the reallocations on 120 and 111, it aligns with what Joe was just talking about, right? Because we don't want to make an investment in these buildings. And then when we've come to agreement with FEMA, the systems may be looking different. What's really important, and I want members of this committee to hear, is that these 120 State Street and 111, and those needs are critical. The building and the system within DMV, 120 State, I still call it DMV, they need to be replaced. We continually spend some major maintenance money on this, but we really talked about, it, and we talked about when is the right time. Because these projects, 120 was on the books before it flooded, right? And so I just want to emphasize that it's not that we don't have the capacity or we don't want to do it. These are difficult projects and they've got to be done at the right time, and they need to align with sometimes everything else going on.
Yeah.
And the other piece, Joe, I just would like to highlight on is the contingency. And I think most of you have enough experience now in this committee. We phase funds projects. We build up the bank to get them done. We use cost estimators. We use all of the technology today that you have to do to put a project together. We don't control bids.
Yeah.
There's costs associated with them locating. It may be the cost that they're paying their employees. And we don't want to reject every bid. And sometimes when we come to you, we do a really good job to update you on increases and we look at those. And I always say this, we put inflation in it and we add other things, but our estimates to you are the best estimates that we can give you at that point in time. That doesn't mean what the bid is going to come in. So this money, this is really where you give us the ability to continue moving forward with the project. Instead of saying, oh my gosh, we have no room, we gotta go back to the legislature, and it gets delayed, and then it costs.
Joe, before you go, just so I can orient you, we're talking about 120 and 111. Is that building, is that Middlesex? And
This is the Middlesex,
Yeah.
yes.
I'm thinking like, we're talking about one
Nothing
thing.
to do with
We're talking about one
what
thing.
we're talking about.
Okay.
Just a picture to put this beautiful.
Yeah.
That's a test.
Okay. I just want to make sure that I was not thinking something completely wrong.
Commissioner, I have a question from what you just said.
Certainly.
So what is the game plan right now with State Street? Is it
Oh,
which is
120?
which 120, which is DMV? That's right back
DMV.
here, right?
That's 120 across. It houses DMV, Department of Human Resources, some of our maintenance staff, and ADS. What's the plan with 120, or what is the plan
Yeah,
with
what's-
State Street?
No, 120.
So the plan with 120, what we're proposing, so we need to replace the whole radiator, heating systems, HVAC. We have some deterioration of the walls from the steam. And so the radiators have to come out. That project has to be done. Joe, I hope, if I'm wrong, you tell me, but you've made me smart. It's floor by floor. And it's a complete mechanical heating HVAC system. And so that project, that's been on the books, Madam Chair, I think since
Forever.
2014.
Put in
You
2 million in
read-
FY
I think you had-
27.
I think we had 8 million at one time for it.
We've been
and
doing
that's
this forever.
It is not an easy project. Those individuals in that building, those services, to Joe's point, have to be we have to figure that all out. As we are working and trying to finalize with FEMA regarding the Capitol complex, right, which way are we going? As we do that, we are trying to do the best design and look at options. And Joe, you're gonna correct me, can we do on each side of the street one mechanical system to support all of these buildings? Because all the buildings that were flooded, we have to replace those items. So we're trying to be thoughtful, we're looking at alternatives. So let's just say we could do a mechanical building and system on that side of the street. We don't want to invest this money and have a building with its own, we'd want to connect it. So that's my simple way of saying we're just resetting our thoughts about 120 and we don't think we need to do that building. And we will be back for money, there's no question about it. But do we expand our planning to include that building so we can maximize dollars, get the best system? What would you like to add to that, Joe?
More money, please.
So, I'm sorry I missed this. But if you look, we've put in FY 27, $2 million for 120 State Street HVAC. So how is this connected to that 2 million?
What Joe was saying is that's an example of how we can use planning and reuse to realign, right, Joe?
Yes.
So are you using any of that 420,000 for planning and reuse for the 120 State Street steam line interior renovation?
No. It's really about, now that we're in the slide deck further down, there is that line item for 120 State Street. We have reallocated those funds back because of what the commissioner just said. We're going to be working, we need to know what FEMA is going to pay for and what our option is going forward, but we're going to do it. So it's really about also then retaking the 120 and 111 and what do we do in advance on how that's going to work with potentially FEMA, because FEMA is not going to have funds for us to do that. So it's how do we incorporate that and what really takes place. So under the example of the HVAC is how does that work? Where's it going to connect to the building and the likes of that?
So, Director Ajak, your slide says committed 420 and you have 120 and 111 State Street. And I think that's what the chair is trying to say. How are you gonna, you're
Right.
reallocating old money, but we're gonna use some of this for this project.
Right.
So you're reallocating, if I go to the back page for 120 renovations HVAC line 186, you're reallocating 1 million cash.
Yeah.
Okay, we've also put in 2 million in FY 27 of bonded money for 120 State Street HVAC. Are you following this?
Yeah, with you.
And you've also reallocated on lines 192 HVAC lines at 1.5 cash. So there's $2.5 million worth of cash that have been reallocated. And the governor has kept $2 million of bond in FY 27 for the project.
And I'll point out that it's a similar thing. If you go to line 114, we're allocating, the governor is recommending 500,000 to USAR, which is also currently
Right.
sit here as using planning use and contingency.
$500,000 cash, right? So I'm just trying to track this. This is all I'm trying to do. Have things changed? Are we appropriating more than we need to? Is it, or not? You see what I'm saying, Jim?
Yes.
So we're reallocating 2.5 million in cash. Do you want to do planning, trying to figure out what you're going to do going forward, but then we've got 2 million of bonded dollars in FY 27 for the same project. And how much do we have in the bank from this previous project of bonded? We've been doing this project for a long time, 20.
Yes.
Follow up with more detail on this specific project, but for like, you had mentioned GSR facility, I mean, with this slide, it's really doing specific planning for possibilities. So like Joe had said, with the GSR facility, taking some of the planning money to assess our site in Williston, the former police barracks, to see if it could be suitable for that purpose, right? Like would placement of that facility work on this site? So that's what we're using some of the planning money for. Not construction costs, not, you know, not going to that level, but really doing some exploration. And I think same thing with 12111, Joe had mentioned, like reserving some of that fund for some of that planning work, and then the possibility that we might need to use some space. So it's really related, but somewhat, you know, early stage planning work is what we're using those funds for.
But we'll just, I understand that one for the use, or however you pronounce that facility. I understand that, because what you're putting in, and we'll get into this, the 500,000 cash. We'll get into what that 500,000 will be used for. It's actual project design or actual get out there and do observations. We'll get into that. But the 120, I really want to look at that a little bit more.
All right, I agree with Madam Chair, and I'll look into it and I'll get you an answer.
Did the committee follow that for 120?
Mhm.
And 111 State Street, what building is that?
Supreme Court building,
Yeah,
that was adding a floor back in the library section. Yes.
what's the status of 108?
We don't have a purchase and sales agreement in place. During some due diligent work, some things were pointed out to us that potential hazards. There used to be a gas station and a dry cleaners on the site. Great, double whammy.
So in this section, Madam Chair, that one is called out for some additional site investigation work that will be undertaken to understand the site conditions better. We did have
Within this planning reuse?
Yes, so that's some of the money that is committed is, you know, we're planning to use for that investigation work. We did have a purchase and sale. It expired. We're still in discussion with a potential buyer, but this is investigation work that needs to be done to better understand the site conditions. So unfortunately, it's a step that we have to take and see what it tells us.
So that would be for the gas station dry cleaner? Is that where the garage is now, or was it?
Yes, it is with the garage.
Got it.
Well, we think it's that. We don't
We don't-
know.
we
the
just-
source. I apologize, Madam Chair, I just walked in and heard about that. I don't know if there's anything on it.
Oh, no, I just shared for this planning money, it'll be for some site investigation work, just to learn more about site conditions.
What building?
Well, I'm not an engineer, but right now it's contained. It's when you choose to demolish.
Yeah.
But because we've had, and Emily, George, but because we've been working with an individual on the purchase, we've done the assessment. So it has now been identified
hazards listed now as a hazardous site.
So you have to plan for that.
Yes, and we do have to continue the process to move on to a phase 2 assessment. Again, see what it tells us and then go from there.
How deep is that parking garage?
Hmm?
3 stories is that parking garage? It's
Wants to
Three
be
and a half.
three.
underground?
We didn't build this building. We didn't build the
Anything
parking
wrong?
garage.
Gas station and the dry cleaners.
You come in on ground
You
level.
come in on.
Coming on ground level, then you
Go down.
go down for parking.
Yeah.
Took a tour of that 2 years ago, 3 years.
What's that gonna, I mean, you gotta bore through the concrete and still see if there's
The building,
anything left underneath it.
the building is on top of the garage.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying if they've removed, 3 stories of earth, you'd think that they got to whatever gas
You
leaching,
would think, but
dry cleaning stuff is left there. But that would just make sense. I'm sorry, I'm gonna state government, I forget.
And I'm gonna say that.
No, it wasn't state government that built it. It was not state government that built it. The garage was privately owned, privately built. And the building, was the building on top of the garage at the time? Yeah,
no,
no, we
we,
built the building.
yes.
The garage was not built by the state. We took it over because it was getting old and the company didn't want to keep it, so they offered it to
We
the
also
state.
needed space for
We
each
needed
just
space.
downtown.
So it was a private company that built it. And had the garage for what, 15 years or so before? Wasn't that old?
I don't know.
But I think it's important that at the time that was built, we probably had different standards
Yep.
on sites. Again, there's, appropriate protocol where you can encapsulate. And so this is very common. I think, you guys have, I think Burlington has experienced it, many schools. So at the time so I'm not saying it's okay, but now we have due diligence with that. And I want to say, we don't know. We've actually pulled records because I'm curious, my team, we are trying to find some of the original records of what was conveyed to us at the time of purchase.
When was that? Was it in the 90s we got that, late 80s?
No, I want to say it was in the 80s. We owned
Was-
it. When
was-
I started in 96 or 99, it was.
Oh, yeah, we
occupied.
own, when I'm trying to think, because I came on this committee in
I think it was John
93.
Zampiero.
I came on this committee in 93 and I have a hunch it was around that time. Who built the garage? Was it Fitzagalley?
No, Bobby Miller.
No,
Bobby
Bobby
Miller.
Bobby Miller was the owner. He
Yeah.
didn't build it.
Okay.
He had
I
it built,
just
he had
want
it
to be-
constructed.
Right, I think there's a lot of different opinions around this, so I'm a little sensitive because, he bought it, he probably hired someone to build it. And we don't have all of that information, right? We talk about it like we do, but I just want to emphasize that I really want to understand. And I want to see what our records show. When we built, this was probably one of the first underground parking garages. We lived in a state that was heavy use on salt. Studded tires were probably at every house, on every vehicle. Those two things, that no parking garage is designed for that. And, that's where we started getting the deterioration and the rust and everything into the column, so.
Same thing with the Asa Bloomer building.
Well, you're gonna see it with 32 Cherry Street.
And
very
we bought
shortly.
that, the Asa Bloomer building was owned by a private company. We bought that in the 90s.
Parking garages require an enormous amount of maintenance. And I think it's been one of those items that underground, out of sight, we can take to deal with it later. Next winter won't be that hard. And this is, and I go to Warren, there's never enough money for parking garages. You funded this parking garage, I believe, twice, and we reallocated it because it was so enormous. No one
Then
could
we
wrap their
decided
heads
to
around.
sell it.
Then you decided to sell it. But Dave Burley, Joe and I have talked about it, when Dave, you funded it, we were gonna break it down, we were gonna do it in pieces, and it's enormous. And Joe and I talked about it. This type of work is it's huge, it's overwhelming. Sorry, Joe, you know, I just had a little passion.
Don't ever own a parking garage.
That's not, you can, you just gotta maintain.
You gotta really maintain it, be committed to it.
That's- You have to be invested in the investment of that. No, do you have a parking garage plan?
At the end,
You're supposed to take it out.
The
no,
944 that you got left, that's for that's through FY 27.
correct.
And Madam Chair, I know that our spend on this, you know, goes like that. But I think what Joe has been trying to present is that we believe, based on what's on the books, we're gonna see we're gonna see the demand come in 27. And that's why I think he's giving you some of those examples. And what I appreciate is the fungibility that you give me for planning, reuse, and contingency.
Right. So maybe this question was asked, but you use these funds for reuse or repurposing of existing space. So when there was the governor's recommend to call employees back to the office workspace, was any of the dollars here used for any repurposing of existing space at all?
No, and Joe, you're gonna correct me. I think we have a limit on the reuse, don't we? So it's the same as 100,000.
I don't think we have a limit,
Oh, okay.
but I think they're typically not large projects. You're moving, you put people, you know, this room to the other room or something like that. It hasn't been a.
Right. I think one of the
Major project.
common things is the session ends and maybe, I mean, we haven't done this for a long time, but you may modify a program or add a service. That's where reuse would go in, and we would go in to accommodate that customer in making that adjustment. Planning and contingency are the higher, contingency is the number one that would come out of here, and then planning.
So my question was, any of this money used to update any of the office space for the return to work?
No.
I just want to be clear, that's all.
And Madam, and I think, and I know you've had conversations on this, and you know, there's one location where it was a lease. We wouldn't use this money on leased property.
And the lease payment for that office space in Waterbury that's now going to be leased out. That lease payment is coming from the departments that are going to be housed there, and that's normal operating, that's normal. Whenever we lease property, the department or entity that is in that property pays that lease through their operating fund.
Right, so we in property management, so we stay current with the owners of the property, we will pay so the departments or agencies agree to the terms of the lease, we all sign off on it. And then those payments are made when we back charge, right? And basically it's just, we pay it, we designate it, and then the bill goes through the system to the department and it's back charged and it comes back into the property management fund. Because we want to ensure all payments to, you know, I think we have 90 leases or something. I don't know why I have that number. But you know, that they're made monthly.
Because that question has come up with other colleagues trying to figure out this.
Right.
piece.
And if a department wants to do something to a leased space, so, you know, I'll use Berry City Place. And they want to do some interior renovations, or they want to move staff around or do modifications. We look at it, this is what property management does, and we determine if it's part of the lease, if it's costs that should be amended in the lease, and if it's not, then the department has to find the funds within their budget to make those modifications.
Typically, that's the scenario. Usually it is wrapped into the lease because as privately space, the landlord needs to approve and often will just seize the work. One example of this happening recently has been at City Center. There's been a lot of changes in that lease space for the Cannabis Control Board and Department of Financial Regulation recently downsized their footprint, but they also did a renovation of their existing space. more about his environment, and that was something that they did with the landlord. BGS was in a supporting role to help them plan and design that, but ultimately it was rolled into the lease rate.
Anything else on this? Okay, let's keep going.
Next up would have been physical security enhancement. As stated earlier, the commissioner was going to come back, talk to you about this one. 3-acre stormwater compliance. We finally have our permits in place for 3 sites. For Middlesex, St. Albans, and Pittsford. And those projects will be out to bid next month or 2. Northern State Correctional Facility, we should be seeing the permit come in on that one soon also. And we may be able to get that one out to bid also.
Which one is that, the Newport?
Report, correct. Waterbury is also in the works. So as Virgins, we do have the permit for Virgins. When we were down there talking with the zoning department and presenting our plan to them, they were looking at us correcting the sidewalk that runs along there. I don't know who constructed the sidewalk. They believed it was the state, and it's like, why aren't we taking care of the sidewalk? Like, well, these are stormwater funds. It was something that we could look at. So with all the changes that took place with us at Virgins, we put a hold on that one. That just will move down to the bottom of the list. And then Montpelier, including the Department of Labor, is on hold right now until we know what we're doing with FEMA and the flood.
Sean?
Do you have any update with the FEMA sitch?
I'll defer.
No, it's, so, you know, Doug is taking the lead, and I think he could give you more detailed updates. He is in conversations. We are anticipating that we are gonna hear something by March on our request. If that could happen before, I don't think I think they have a requirement. That's why you have to talk to Doug. I think there is a deliverable from them. Details on that is in March. I'm looking at Emily.
So
I think there's a deadline that
There's a
they
dead-
have to respond to us.
no, there's a deadline of, it's either, I think it's March 15th, or 30 days after we receive a final offer, fixed cost offer, whichever is sooner, for the state to accept the offer. So
Well, and I just want to emphasize is accept, negotiate, or
Right.
so
respond.
we may get something, but we may be responding and we may be negotiating, or Doug will be. So it's not a final process in March.
There's a heads up in March.
There's a heads
Get
up.
something.
You know, and I just want this committee to know, you know, Joe, and a gentleman on his team, Ethan and BGS. You know, we work very closely with Doug. We have an architect on, and the amount of work. And the estimates and the detail, you know, we could fill this desk with reams of paper. So while you don't hear anything, I just want to say to this committee, it is all hands on deck, and it's an enormous amount of time. And while we're doing that, Joe's spending money.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mere curiosity with the Virgin sidewalk, is that typical? The state puts in a sidewalk on state land and then the municipality expects that to be perpetual sort of upkeep from the state?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
I know Portland zoning is where our public safety facility is. Their zoning up there is that, you know, if you're doing some site work and whatnot, or new build, you will put a sidewalk in.
But maintain it for,
The owner would maintain it until I think it's a complete loop. So when it went in Virgins, I don't know.
So the 5.8 million will get you through How much is the Middlesex, St. Albans and Pittsford? How much is that gonna be?
Okay.
So, you know, this is estimated at $1 million.
St. Albans is what, 1 million?
Yes, it's.
Middlesex is probably around 300, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, St. Albans, I think is one of the largest.
And then what about Pittsford?
Pittsburgh would be between Middlesex and St. Albans cost wise, the amount of work that's being done, but I don't have the estimate. From
Middlesex is what?
around 300, but I don't know the exact number. Less than $1 million.
So those are gonna be going out to bid in February. Middlesex, St. Albans and Pittsford. Would the Newport facility be next? Because the permit is almost done?
It would be. And that one has essentially some work up there that's not easy. Lauren has done a lot of her work up at Newport. She built the stormwater pond. Last I know, we were having a discussion with A&R over whether or not it's sized properly or not, whether we gotta enlarge it. So.
So is this connected at all that you need to get this done before you get that boiler?
No, to be in addition to, so when the boiler comes online, that is more impervious
Right,
surface.
but in terms of access to the building and everything, do you need to have the stormwater structure? Does that have to be more in place first before you really get into the boiler or the boiler? Is it a chicken and egg situation?
It is for construction purposes, so we don't want to be doing both at the same time. That'd be just way too much.
And that's why we postponed it a little bit over time. Not last time, but the time before we found.
Right, but I think if we can get it permitted and construction this year, we would not overlap
You mean the stormwater?
the stormwater with the boiler. Yes. They're always good. plans.
So they're both kind of contingent on each other. And so for the Newport boiler, the governor put in $2 million in cash. And we have money still left
That's correct.
from previous appropriations for the boiler. We'll figure that out when we have you folks back in.
Yes.
Right, I guess it's more than two now.
Right. Any other questions? Okay,
On the state buildings, you've had a past presentation, I want to say 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
On our state buildings, so it is in our section. I have a slide on that. Next up, Asa Bloomer Building, the roof repair. So the sewer work is ongoing. We've stopped most of the water infiltration coming in. The sewer line is completely connected by now. If not complete, it's pretty close now that it's all new pipe, everything running through the building out to City of Rollins system. And so that project these two projects have been together from the inception. It's just that we were working on sewer first. That project's almost complete. We're now into the roof repair. It was mentioned earlier by the commissioner, when it rains or when the weather warms up and there's snow on the roof, it rains inside. A considerable amount.
It's just
And
a
it's
nice
not-
water detail.
Right, it's not just
Not
the
appreciated.
skylight, it is multiple places in the room. And I want the committee to know that HS Customer Services Daily, reaching out to Vermonters, is located on those floors where the water pours in. And that's how the building is, and in the last 12 months, we've had some pretty significant water damage, which creates a whole other problem for the building. And serious leaks.
Joe, is that like some kind of a polycarbonate roof? Like that you see through it?
Skylight, yes,
Oh. Is that the roof or a skylight?
it's a skylight and that too is being replaced under this project. And for multiple reasons. One, it's original to when the building was constructed and it leaks. It also has a problem as the snow slides off the roof, it builds up. The roof insulation is different, R value is different than the sidewall of the
So
skylight.
you get condensation like.
The lower
Right.
photo here, you can see under a beam right there where it just has sheeted and bubbled through the paint.
Yeah.
We
So
also,
that whole big thing up there is a skylight. When you say a skylight,
it's a sizable.
we're not talking a Velux 4x4.
Garage.
No, it is not. No, that's a separate one.
Oh, okay.
So
Anyway.
this is a building we did not build.
It was,
No, we did not build
It was
it.
in the
was-
90s we bought it.
right, it came in too expensive, and so it was a pivot.
Wasn't it wasn't?
No, the original agreement, this is one of those, we've got two unique projects.
Oh, they're unique.
Go ahead.
right.
So they're like treasury.
They're the
Right.
treasury, so this is the one that we were leasing, and the lease agreement had an agreement, and I'm going back, that we would purchase it and a portion of our lease went into it. So this was always, when the state entered into this in the early nineties, or the late eighties, that was always the idea. We built, this was the multimodal, right? We built the bus station, we built the parking lot.
That was in the early
parking lot was there.
2000s.
And then there was this building. We've always been in the building, but it was owned and other spaces were leased. And the treasury, if you just want to highlight on that, because I think that's important.
I don't have all the details, but I do know there's a difference in the way we treat the funds.
And it's for this building in St. Albans.
Yes.
You
So this is
treat
an
the
estate-
funds of, which funds?
That it's, and maybe we should come back,
Yeah.
Emily and I, we can give you these are the treasury bonds, so there were two specific projects that the state entered into certain agreements and it was an outcome of a development lease.
If we could refresh our recollection and
Yeah.
follow.
So we're stuttering.
When you mention the St. Albans one, is
St.
that,
Albans office building. This one is in the same category as that, but this was the first property we did in that manner.
yeah,
So we'll get you a couple of bullets on that, because we're both sitting here like.
yeah, and this skylight thing is not new. I mean, I'm looking back, we have looked at this over the past few years to take care of this. And I remember specifically in 23, even last year, we talked, it would be the skylight. It's still not being done. Was it the sewer came in as an emergency?
It wasn't an emergency, but it was needed to be repaired before the skylight roof.
And I'll tell you, committee, we could not have done this soon enough because we were having sewer issues and employees were it was a little rough this year with that, and I think that's really important. And again, this particular project, I think last year or in the last 12 months, we did one repair that was significant, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and then it was the end of December or January, they just had another huge leak. And we're reallocating major maintenance because we have employees in there and we've got to protect the building. We can't.
Sure.
Just when will the project be finished and does 3.6 million get you there?
Perhaps.
Perhaps.
I had to throw that in. With our best estimates, yes, this should get us to completion.
When?
By the end of the summer, hopefully.
Okay.
We want to
This summer.
start as soon, yes, yeah.
The plans are already completed.
Okay.
Okay.
Right next door and attached is the multimodal garage renovation. So it's a little time, the last time I was up here, mentioned it,
Mhm.
what's going on. So we have looked at this project and we're assuming that the additional funding that we're asking for now will complete the top priority items in saving that. In the coming years, because of it's really long-term maintenance that we'll be doing that, we'll be possibly back for more money. Depends on how that is broken out, but right now, what we're asking for should complete the areas where the chunks of concrete has fallen off, and we've got to protect some of the exposed rebar, encapsulate that both for structural reasons and to prevent it from rusting further.
And I just want to say to the committee, this is how 108 Cherry started.
Mhm.
And I'm really being sincere, and then we kept deferring.
Yes,
So I think we can't go back there, but I think the structures are very similar that you're showing.
yes, sir.
But this hasn't completely rusted, what you see, but give it time.
The bonus in this one is it's open to the air. The 108 Cherry Street, it's in the ground, and there's only two exhaust fans that were providing the airflow in there. This at least has a better opportunity to be drying it, so the salt water doesn't seep in as much.
So what building is on top?
That is a whole parking structure.
It's the whole parking structure
It is.
itself, okay.
And if you remember, Madam Chair, this was built with AOT. There were federal dollars
Yeah.
to create the multi-modal
Yep.
model.
And
And
yep, and then we had to take ownership. I was on transportation at that time.
You were?
Yep, early 2000s. 2002, 2003.
so sometimes BGS inherits property.
Yes. This one was controversial.
Do you have any sense of what the utilization rate of that garage is? Noted as 591 spots.
It's, the Paramount uses this a lot, doesn't it?
We can follow up. We do know that information. The day-to-day operations of the garage are managed by Laz, as a contractor. And so they oversee, again, the day-to-day, parking in and out, and, we can pull those numbers on use.
And I just want,
Paramount use it?
well, it's, the whole city uses it.
Yeah.
So we, at one time, back in the early 2000s, we had security there. We had the parking garage, we had parking attendants, people had to pay. And so operation became more difficult because the city wanted it accessible to the community, which made sense. So we entered into agreement with the city, who then contracts with Laz. And they maintain it, they operate it, they do the tickets, we have to do the repairs. It's like a lease, so we're really leasing it to them. I will tell you, they do a phenomenal job. It is one of the cleanest parking garages that I've seen. And they are, and we get so many spaces for our employees that are in the building that is attached.
It's similar, again, to the St. Albans, not the same construct, but in St. Albans, where we have a certain number of spaces designated for state employees in
In that
the
parking
state
garage.
office building. So again, similar concept, different structure of ownership.
Yeah, like you don't own it. It's it.
Yeah, yes,
Right, well, we own this one.
yeah.
But it makes sense to have those partnerships and those operations, because this is a heavy day-to-day burden if GS had to staff and operate and provide the security and collect the funds. We are responsible for major maintenance. We are responsible, because we own it, and what Joe is showing you. We're St. Albans.
We don't own it.
We don't own it, we pay for it. So parking garages are still being built, there's still logic behind them, but it's really the operation of it.
But I'm just curious if like the peak utilization is 80% or if it's 30%, like I just.
I think you're gonna see it's high, actually.
That could be.
Which is, well, it's
I've never been in
because
parking
all
garage.
of the transit buses go through here, the downtown, lease spaces, the state leases spaces. And then they keep it open for, the Paramount Theater and other community activities.
It's heavily used. right in
The
downtown.
buses the buses for that whole region and for those counties they're moving through there all of the time. I went and sat and watched one day, so it's not like one bus. It's multiple buses,
Anything else?
but we'll get you those numbers.
You-
You bet. And it's probably 20%, then I'm gonna be embarrassed.
What's that?
You say.
But it sounds like a lot of parking spots and for that downtown.
Next up is the Pittsford Academy firing range upgrades. Over the years, this range has seen a multitude of renovations,
Mhm.
getting it closer and closer to almost being enclosed, but it's all due about safety, whether it's rounds escaping from the range and or the weather coming in. And as you can see on the bottom right photo, you can see the sun coming in and lighting up the ground. The same issue, though, is it also allows the rain and the snow to come in. So when officers or people going through the criminal justice training process, they get in there and they have to approach their targets. I believe the first one is at 3 yards and then going back to 50. So when the snow and the ice gets in there, it's become very hazardous to be using the range, to be able to walk down the range when the ground is frozen. And during training and have, a pistol in your hand, practicing your shooting. So this is to design a roof over the complete structure. It still will be open air. And the reason for the open air is because of the potential buildup of lead. Depends on the fund. There we have 3 options. One, we're just doing the roof. One is to also be extracting all the lead that's in the earth bank that is there to finally do away with it. And then anybody who uses the range will then have to go to steel copper shells as opposed to casings, as opposed to using lead casings and lead bullets. So there's that option. And then there's also an option out there where they would like a longer range. And so that option is providing 2 shooting ranges alongside of the east side of the range and would be extending this out further. We haven't solidified yet on what option to do.
So that 200,000 is really going into planning and design, trying to figure out
That is
what we're gonna be doing. So if there is a decision to do a longer range, that will impact your roof. I would
Yes,
assume.
the roof in that area would have to be longer or, ends up being L-shaped and lots of that because of that.
And what about the earth bank? Where is that? Is that showing in the bottom?
The earth bank is no longer being used. At the end of this range now, it's one of the bullet trap. And
So the earth
every,
bank was from way back, right?
Jim Richards.
Yeah, that's what I'm remembering.
the,
Stray bullets.
yes, there were stray bullets.
And lead in the dirt.
There's a tremendous amount of lead there, and this traps the lead. And every 3 to 4 years, I think it was, remember, $40,000 to clean the lead traps out. It was a high amount to have a company come in and clean that lead trap out. It's just not a trough that catches them. There are other, I don't know what the material is, rubber balls or something like that. So the bullets do not keep ricocheting around, but then traps the bullets. That all has to be cleaned out every so often because you need the ratio of that material versus your bullets to be on the low side of bullets.
So if they convert to steel, copper bullets, would this whole issue eventually just go away?
You would still be cleaning the bullets out of the trap, but it wouldn't be hazardous
It wouldn't
waste.
be hazardous. So is there pushback to switch from lead bullets to the steel, copper?
Last time I had a discussion with them, they were leaning towards that. But that would be up to the council,
Criminal Justice Council, or
yes, to make that call.
which is on there, go after them.
Who pays for the ammunition that'll triple in cost?
That would be the
The council.
the council.
Let's go.
No, it's out of our general fund, but either way, you're paying state dollars to take care of the hazardous waste from the lead, or you're paying. And I don't know what the cost would be of steel copper bullets versus lead bullets. I mean, you'd have to balance that all out in terms of what you're paying for the cleanup of lead bullets. That's a balance that you have to do.
Just have a quick clarifying
James?
question. Did you, when Alice asked you about the roof at the end, you said something about potentially an L shape.
If,
What do you mean?
with the option of having a longer range for further shooting inside of a controlled area, then that roof would have to extend over that part of the range also.
I understood that part, but did I misunderstood you when you said, or did I hear wrong about L shape?
Well, that would be the roof, because you'd have the major portion of the existing lanes and you add to and extend it maybe another 25 yards. It's more of a golf club, I would say, than a L-shaped.
Okay.
That roof would have to be extended down that range.
So the 200,000 basically just gets you the design documents. to
And an
figure-
estimate of what that cost is going to be.
Would it be construction documents or schematic?
I think we get to construction documents. It would not be construction administration.
And this is one of the projects, I just, as everyone puts their capital bills together, this is, public safety and training centers priorities, which you're very familiar with, Madam Chair.
Anything else? 100,000 bonded FY 27,
That's just for design.
right, to get us to construction documents. Okay. We're gonna wait on the State House. Okay.
Now we come to the Montpelier State House with pointing. There is a lag. I don't get to see that. As I presented on this last year, and so what this project is doing is we've had a firm come in who, US Heritage Group, who knows about lawn putty mortar. And they did a thorough investigation of the State House, top down, all sides. And they decided our problem with the rust spots and the darkening stains that you see on the granite is due to high moisture. And moisture.
Mind you, man.
Copper clad.
He didn't react. The,
He's getting used to it.
so to do that is it to prevent the moisture from coming in. It's about the roof, the gutters, and also the mortar itself and how it is applied. Line putty mortar goes through a curing process. It's early on and you have to keep it damp, not wet, but damp in the first, I forget now, like 10 days. And that's when it actually cures. So what we first have to do here is sacrifice all the mortar joints that are already in place, because they will help extract the moisture as we work our way down and fix the roofs, fix the gutters, the windows, the doors and the likes of that, where water is coming in. Then there'll be several years that we'll be able to then start chasing around the building, completing repointing on different sides. And once we prevent the moisture from coming in, it will dry out, but it will still have to be repointed in the end.
I'm gonna go to Wanda first.
So Madam Chair, thank you. I just want to say to the committee, this is a great example of a major maintenance project. It's your State House, and I know that we have other items that we're going to talk about at another time regarding the State House. But when you're thinking about it, it doesn't matter what we do at the State House, if it's security related, if it's lawn related, if it's an addition. this is a major maintenance item that doesn't fit. That's the correlation I wanna make. You've gotta make an investment in this. This will just continue as Joe talked about. And I think one of the members of this committee may have gone out last year and tested the grout. Or evaluated it.
Did you do that?
I think, I thought you went and looked at it.
Which one?
Yes.
State building,
Is
the
it
state
the
house.
I don't know what.
I mean, I've walked around and looked at it.
So, but I think the correlation that I'm trying to make is that this is a great example of maintenance.
Yeah.
It is.
And it's something that we can't do within that, and this is how it becomes a project of its own. And I encourage you in the spring to walk around and look at it. It's very evident.
It's really evident.
It is.
See it just walking in and out of the building.
I showed it to Laura Treisman. I said, that looks just.
And this is going to be unique. Joe talked about this last year, right? Finding the right mortar, finding. This is not just, taking the caulking out that we put in that has
Exactly.
created other problems, but.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So these funds will start the design process and also lay out a plan going forward of what should be tackled first and what those estimates are going to be.
And Joe, this was 26 money and we did move on it this past year.
We're developing the RFP right now.
So I think it's important for the committee to understand too. Oh, that's the last one.
You probably mentioned this last year, and if you tell me enough times, I will remember it. Once we repoint this, get all the wrong stuff out, get all the good stuff in. What is the time frame for, or is there, where for that upper right bottom where it's brown, to turn back to white, or will it always be stained?
If we stop the moisture migrating through the granite, we can actually clean the granite and pull the moisture and the staining out. And then it would be done. It will be multiple years though.
And that's the other piece that I think is important. The season and the weather has to be just right to do this work. Correct, Joe?
Correct.
And can't do it in winter, I would assume.
No. And you don't want a hot windy day either.
So I'm looking at the time. And we have, at 11 o'clock, the Sergeant at Arms coming in with our Capitol Police security training. And I want to be respectful of their schedule. Do folks want to quickly finish? We got like three. Well, we got more than that. I think this would be a good stopping point. So that we can take a break and be back here quickly for security training. We will be going into executive session for that security training, so we'll have to make a motion to go into security session. To go into executive session. So why don't you work with Tate to schedule finishing up 120? Finishing up your section, see what we can do. We also want to get into the correctional facilities too. At the same time. So let's go off live and take a quick break, and please